Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, what I'm going to say right now is true right now, but I'm not sure it'll be true when people are listening because we have not yet released our last show as of the time of recording, and I may have a ton of angry Cincinnati Reds fans in my mentions. So right now I'm fine, but pretty soon I might be not fine. We'll see.
I hope there are a whole bunch of Cincinnati Reds fans in your mentions. They do not like to have their team discussed in poor ways, but we don't need to. Last show was enough for that. Let's go ahead and move on to this show, the third show this week, which we're powering through our listener questions. And I don't say powering through in a negative way. I say it in a positive way where we're getting it out there for you. We're getting these things done. We're answering some questions. We're talking football because that's what we do. That's what you're here for. Tom, let's get right to it.
We are going to power through, hit the hole hard, keep our legs churning. That's how we do this podcast. My legs are churning right now. First one from @DM Henwood. Is there a scenario that you think plays out best or worst for Ohio State? And I assume that's this season.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to assume. I think the best scenario is play on time. That's with how good this team should be and the talent that they have. Let's get things going. Play first game September, whatever, and make this season happen and take advantage of the team that Ryan Day has put together. In terms of any of the other scenarios, Ohio State's going to be everybody's going to be in the same boat basically. So any other scenario, I kind of feel like Ohio State would have as much of an advantage there as well. But for me, if you're talking one scenario, it's like, let's get this season started as it should, because this team is really, really good, assuming the running backs can do what they do and a deep safety can do what he does, Tom. Those are some, significant caveats, but I think the best scenario is let's start the season on time and let's get through this and don't need any hiccups or any changes. Like, I don't see any of those things helping Ohio State materially unless we're talking about no non-conference, and now Ohio State doesn't have to go out and possibly risk losing to Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, the more similar that things are to normal, the better it is for the better teams. Like it's like in weather. It's like in a longer season, you're more likely to have the true talent best team win, and the best team does not always win March Madness because it's a bunch of one-game tournaments. Like, more often than not, if you're playing a 7-game series in a sport, more often than not, one of the better teams is going to win rather than March Madness where it's like, well, sometimes the best team just gets knocked out by a 14 seed just because that just happens. The ball bounces a weird way. A full season with full preparation or close to full preparation would be the best for Ohio State. Any kind of shortened season, like you get the one game where something bounces weird and boom, you're out of the playoff. That's something that the more similar this could be to a normal season in every way, the better off it is for Ohio State. I mean, the whole concept of a puncher's chance is, an underdog, but they just sneak in that one lucky punch. The more times the bigger your sample size is, the less chance it is that ends up mattering. If they were playing, if they played Purdue 10 times in 2018, they probably lose only one of them, but they got that one. And in a season that's a short season or something like that, where there's more uncertainty because there's less playing time, there's less practice time, all of that. That's, I think, that raises the risk that you have like a weird fluky something that blows up your whole season.
And you wouldn't need to be blown out either, I don't think, where that loss was devastating because of the score and how bad it was. But in a shortened season, a 21-10, 21-13 loss might just be as significant.
Yeah. Yep. So next one, from @TonyDaggett _IAF. This may have been answered, but since the spot game was replayed, where do you guys think both programs would be today had JT been marked short? So the 2016 Ohio State Michigan game, had JT Barrett been marked short in overtime?
I was looking at Michigan. Like, if they win that, they're going to the playoffs, assuming they beat whoever it was in the Big Ten championship game. I think Wisconsin. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I think Wisconsin was like 13 at that point. Michigan would have been number 2 because they were number 3. Ohio State was number 2, so they jump up to at least number 2. And then they beat Wisconsin. They're going to the playoffs, and they're either playing Clemson or Alabama. And I think it does not end well for them, just like it did not end well for Ohio State. But for me, I don't think it really changes anything in 2017 because that year was a mess for Michigan because of injuries. You had Wilton Spate, John O'Korn, and Brandon Peters all playing quarterback. And that's, I don't care if they beat Ohio State the year before. That's those three together playing how they were, Spate being injured. That's not a recipe for success. No momentum is going to help Spate stay healthy or keep John O'Korn from throwing the ball to the defense or give Brandon Peters any kind of chance to be a Big Ten quarterback. So I don't really think it changes anything. Remember that Michigan team in 2017 went 5-4 in the Big Ten. They were 9-5 over or 8-5 overall. So they weren't very good. And they weren't, they had health issues, like I said, with Spate. They had some bad losses. Penn State killed them. So I don't see any, even though that was a big moment and it would have been huge for Michigan, I don't think it gives them some sort of magical momentum. Does it give them a better chance against Ohio State? Yeah, probably. But they collapsed in that game as well for the same reason, because their quarterbacks were bad. And, I don't know how you overcome bad quarterback play, especially in a rivalry where Michigan has had, we always talk about the team that runs it the best wins it, but there's been so much bad quarterback play by the losing teams in this rivalry as well. And Michigan has had some bad quarterback play, especially in that 2017 game.
Yeah, I think at most, they're getting killed. I mean, they lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl that year, so it wasn't like they came off of that game and were, just incredible and really proved everyone wrong in the Orange Bowl. They lost to a not fantastic Florida State team. I don't think that they match up real well with Clemson that year if they play Clemson or Alabama. So, you may get a little temporary bump in recruiting in 2017, maybe 2018, but I mean, they were still recruiting okay in 2017. That was a class that they got Donovan Peoples-Jones. They beat Ohio State for him. They got Aubrey Solomon. They got Cesar Ruiz. They got Luigi Villan. They got Drew Singleton. They got Ambry Thomas. Those are all guys who were top 100 players. That's the best recruiting class they've had in quite a while. And, we've gone through that. Donovan Peoples-Jones was like, yeah, fine. Aubrey Solomon transferred. Cesar Ruiz had a very good career. He's probably been the best player out of that class. Luigi Villan didn't pan out. Drew Singleton is gone. Ambry Thomas has been fine, but not remarkable. It just a lot of the structural issues there in terms of talent development are still they are what they are. Like that doesn't magically solve any of the problems. And maybe their 2018 team recruiting class is a little better than it would have been, but the top recruits in that class are Aiden Hutchinson, Cam McGrone, Mustafa Muhammad, Miles Sims, Joe Milton, Jalen Mayfield. Like they're all guys who are, some of those guys have been contributors, but Mustafa Muhammad transferred, right? I mean, Joe Milton hasn't done anything yet. And there's a lot of other stuff that has not happened there in terms of player development that, maybe it changes the narrative ever so slightly short term, but overall the trajectory is what the trajectory is, and I don't see that changing significantly based on that one play.
You mentioned Jalen Mayfield. I was very surprised today to see his name at number 14 overall on Mel Kiper's big board for the 2021 draft. This is his first year starting at right tackle. Kuiper was apparently very impressed by what Mayfield did against Chase Young. I'll have to go back and revisit Mayfield because that, I was pretty surprised to see him listed ahead of Thayer Munford, for instance. But who am I? I'm just
a guy.
Just a guy, unlike anybody else.
Next one from @Mike HON 06677 Any chance Jalen Gill comes back? I see him as a Curtis Samuel or Paris Campbell type athlete. I mean, that's what Ohio State saw him as, I think, when he was coming in, and it just didn't pan out. It didn't happen. That was something that sometimes these things work out great, and sometimes it's just it just doesn't. The fit doesn't work. We've talked about this a couple weeks ago. He was a guy who was a running back in high school, and then is asked to shift to wide receiver. And sometimes that works out great, and sometimes it just you end up sort of as a tweener, or it just doesn't work for one reason or another. I mean, DeMario McCall is another guy who's in danger of that having that potentially happen. He's kind of bounced back and forth a little bit, which hasn't helped, I'm sure. But it just I don't think he's coming back. I think once you're in the transfer portal, he's someone that enough other places are going to be interested in and going to be interested in featuring him, that he seems like he's got a chance if he wants to go somewhere else and be the big the featured guy. Like, he's going to have that opportunity. So yeah, I don't anticipate him coming back.
I've been asked if do you think players being sent home right now is going to lead to more transfers because players will just want to stay home? Like, he is from Columbus. He's from Westerville here. So you wonder, like, just being like, I just rather stay around here. Will that happen? And we have seen it happen before, but it sure doesn't seem like, I think he left for, playing time issues. And unless people leave, I don't see that changing for him. I was surprised it didn't work out because he did play, he was a running back in high school, but he was already doing slot stuff and running receiver routes at Westerville South. And it just, it seemed like the perfect fit. I even talked to him about it, I think, when he committed, that it's, this is what he's comfortable doing. And he sure looked comfortable last spring doing it. So, but like you said, Tom, it just didn't work out. And I do expect there to be plenty of interest in him. I'll be interested, will there be any interest as a running back? He's only like 192 pounds, I think was what he was listed at last. For some schools, that might be okay with them. But, he's a guy I still, wherever he goes, I'm going to keep an eye on him because, you root for a guy that is that talented. You want to see him do well. You want to see everybody do well. But, we saw glimpses of it. And I still want to see more, even if it's not at Ohio State. Yeah, no, has always seemed like a very good kid, like a nice kid, and someone you would be easy to root for. And I'm sure that wherever he ends up, he's someone that his teammates are going to be happy if he turns out to be a great player at, I don't know, fill in the blank, Florida or Kentucky or Rutgers or whatever. Like, they're going to be perfectly happy to see him do well and be happy for him. So yeah, he seems like someone who it would be great to see him do well. And he has the talent to be an impact player somewhere. It's just, that's a crowded room at Ohio State, and it's a tough place to break into the rotation. Next one from @BoilerBuck13. Is the football jersey number 8 cursed at Ohio State? Stan Jackson, Steve Belisari, Drew Carter, Roy Hall never breaking through, DeVere Posey and his suspension, Noah Spence. There's a lack of star power. There's one that jumped out to me. Yeah, Gary on Conley was 8. That one worked out okay. Bobby Olive worked out, but like Drew Carter being injured, Jeff Cothran was a good one, but I remember him more as 29, but that may also have been his number with the Bengals. But he was a good 8. Rod Gerald was before my time. A lot of these guys are before my time. But yeah, it hasn't had the greatest success of late. Even like Aaron Gant, I think he was maybe the first commit of that class, what would have been like 2006 or whatever. And there was a lot of hype around him, but that was Nate Oliver. Yeah. All of these tweener safeties kind of, no, that was Devin Bogard. No, that was Jermel Hines. But no, yeah, the number 8 should have produced more, based on how many people have had it, especially quarterbacks. But, I don't know. Do you want that number, Tom, knowing the history of it at Ohio State? And because, if you're playing quarterback, do you want number 8? Probably not.
Yeah, probably. Maybe not. I mean, it's, this is not like a bunch of people that like fell into the Springfield mystery spot or anything. Like there's plenty of guys. There's not a ton of star power here, but there's a bunch of guys that have been completely fine. Kendall Sheffield had a nice couple of years at Ohio State. He was a number 8. Noah Spence was on his way to big things, before he headed elsewhere. I mean, there's enough. There's enough there that it's probably not completely cursed. And Stan Jackson had a very good career at Ohio State. He was not,
a 2-year starter.
He was a 2-year starter, and was part of teams that won the Big Ten and went to the Rose Bowl and won the Rose Bowl. And he was, it was kind of a weird situation with him splitting time with Jermaine, but he was, I think if you looked at Stan Jackson when he was recruited and said, this is what he's going to turn into, I think he would have taken that at that point. So, he's someone whose legacy I think suffers just based on one game, really. If the 1997 Michigan game had gone differently, I think Stan Jackson's career is remembered very differently than it is now. Not that it was consistently incredible or anything, but he probably suffers a little bit unfairly from just that one bad day in Ann Arbor. And I have a difficult time holding any John Cooper era performance in Ann Arbor against the player when there was an overriding, umbrella over all of them that was very consistent.
I also think you can't. The number 8 probably holds some jealousy on every team regarding the number 7, because 7 is just seemingly a better number than 8 in terms of jerseys, and that is definitely the case at Ohio State. 7 is one of the 3 or 4 premier numbers at Ohio State, so it's always going to overshadow 8. And maybe there's some sort of inner workings in our brain subconsciously that downplays 8 because of the success that we've seen from number 7 from players like Jordan Hall or Derek Ross or Lamar Thomas or Vinnie Clark, a first rounder, mind you, back in I think like 91 or something. All of these guys were Sean Parker, Antonio Hinton. The success of the number 7 at Ohio State is something that it rises. It's above a lot of things, and maybe we're clouded by that. We're overshadowed. The number 8 is overshadowed by the successes of number 7. But any single digit now, Tom, it's a premium. And we're still looking forward to seeing who the first 0 at Ohio State is going to be. I would suggest, a lot of people think Chris Olave, but the whole CO2 thing that he's got going on,
that's
as his branding, you got to keep that, figure out who that 0 is going to be. Because it is a single digit, it'll be coveted. I don't know what it is supposed to evoke. Like what is 0? I don't know what it is supposed to mean in terms of football. Like who wears that and what, it's not a fast number. So why would a receiver want it? A lineman can't have it in terms of an offensive lineman. 0 sacks. No, you got to be in this 50 to 79 range. Defensive lineman, yes, put it on a 360-pound nose guard. Yeah, that's fine. Do that. Put a 0 on it. We're fine with that. But I don't know really who's going to – I'm sure players want the 0. I just don't know who is going to get it first.
Yeah, the answer to everything at all times, the answer is put it on the largest human being on the team you possibly could. That's the person who needs to wear 0. I just was thinking, I wonder who's number 8 this year, because I could think of Javonte Jean-Baptiste, of course, on defense, and I was like, who did they give it to on offense this year? And the answer is no one. So apparently it is cursed, at least on offense. No one wants it. Or one of the true freshmen coming in later this year is going to get it. Who's to say? One or the other.
Who's to say?
Next one from Randy H. Will schools have to hire a name, image, and likeness liaison, or will it be within current athletic department staff? I think almost certainly at any kind of program that's big enough that you're going to have to, a program the size of Ohio State, it's probably one or more people to monitor it, because it's going to be a lot to put on the existing compliance staff. If they're really supposed to be monitoring each individual deal, that's almost certainly going to be an added position or multiple positions. If you're at Ohio University or Bowling Green or Kent State, like that, it might be something that you can just have an existing person just add on a responsibility, because you're probably not dealing with a ton of different things. But, at Ohio State, it's going to be enough different guys and enough significant deals that they're going to want to make sure that everything is monitored closely, and that means adding people probably.
At Ohio State, I could see it becoming a department in itself. I mean, there's a graphics department. There's all kinds of departments, or maybe it becomes part of the whole branding thing that they do as well. But yeah, I would think everybody's going to add at least somebody. More schools will be able to add more than others, but you have to. I mean, there's got to be monitoring. The NCAA has already said they're going to have to add people to monitor this. I mean, just think how many people they're going to have to add, because everything's going to have to go through them, and stuff is going to have to be vetted, and then you're going to have QC people and monitoring. And so, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of hires, a few hundred hires around college sports because of this. And, long gone are the days of just one guy handling recruiting and one guy, go back to like Coach, the TV show, had an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. Now it's a staff, I think. Now everything is so specialized now, and you've got to monitor this stuff, because all schools are concerned about it. You wonder, like, will schools monitor other schools? Like, is there going to be a centralized database of all of these deals so that, just so that maybe that's how you keep things on as much of an up and up as you can, where Tennessee can go see what Alabama is doing, Ohio State can go see what Clemson is doing, or, what their players are getting, or where the money is coming from, just policing each other so that the NCAA maybe has a little more help.
Yeah, I could see that potentially being, I mean, they're sort of centralizing a lot of the, you centralize the transfer portal and all that. I could see them centralizing something like that and just sort of having it in there. And, maybe this is something where it's done without player names or something like that due to privacy, because I could see privacy being some kind of a concern there, depending on, all the stuff that colleges like to say, oh, we can't tell you because of privacy. Like, I could see that being something that is shielded in some way, that, it just says, advertising for a car dealership and 2 commercials and it's X amount of money or whatever. But I could see that being something that there's some kind of a centralized database just to try and keep it, sunshine is the ultimate disinfectant, as the old journalism saying goes. Maybe that's something that they look at doing. Next one from Bill Fleming. If the season is canceled, do the coaches get laid off? Will the college void their contracts or honor them? And no, they are not going to lay off coaches. I haven't seen that really suggested anywhere. Have you?
No, I know some coaches are taking pay cuts, but coaching is a year-round job, so there's really, if, as Jim Tressel used to say, like, a day off of shaving is a lot like the day off of taking a day off from recruiting or whatever, you look like crap. So if you're laying off coaches, you're laying off your recruiters, and you're going to fall way behind when this thing gets back going. So no, coaches are working every day, and if there's no season, they're still going to be working every day, because there's recruiting, there's everything they're doing right now. You prepare for the eventual restart, and you justify your existence, or else If you're not, then maybe you get laid off. But no, there would be no kind of coaching layoffs at Ohio State. Do the grad transfer or do the graduate assistants and stuff like that need to be here? But probably not. But Ohio State has shown that they're trying to keep everybody on as much as they can, including the student athletes who had their seasons ended prematurely in the spring and were able to get an extra year of eligibility. But there's no reason to. I mean, the thought of a layoff of an Ohio State football coach, it's definitely not going to happen. There would be no contracts voided. There'd be no reason to, because you still need these guys working. You still need them recruiting the next team. And Gene Smith understands that. Michael Drakey stepping down, but they understand that Ohio State relies so much on the football program that they're not going to try to harm the football program right now when they're going to need them as much or more than any other department in the university when things get back up and running.
Right. I mean, the football program is so important to the Ohio State athletic department as a self-sustaining entity, because the athletic department does not take money from the school. The athletic department generally sends money back to the school. So, and that is almost 100% a function of football. Basketball makes some money, but it's really football is what drives just about everything. So even if you see other coaches, coaching staffs getting, furloughed or trimmed down or taking significant pay cuts, Ohio State football is where the money is made. And so, they're not going to, don't expect that anytime soon. Next one from Board at Work. Even though the rules aren't set yet, are recruits starting to ask about the new name, image, and likeness rules and what OSU can maybe do for them? And, I think they are, just based on Twitter, they're definitely aware of it. And based on what Ohio State has put out immediately, Ohio State is definitely aware of it. And Ohio State is not being shy about letting them know that, yes, this is an opportunity here. Yes, this is a major city. Yes, there's a lot of interest in Ohio State football. Yes, it is not explicitly stated, but yes, this is probably a financially intriguing option for you once this new legislation passes, that there's going to be a lot of opportunities just in terms of, we've talked about it on previous shows, whether it's autograph signings at the mall or doing ads for a car dealership or, endorsing products because you have just promoting products on your Instagram, because as an Ohio State football player, you have 120,000 followers on your Instagram, even if you're not the single biggest star on the team. Just the platform in Columbus as an Ohio State football player is so big that, yes, they are. That conversation, I can almost guarantee you, is already being had in both directions at this point.
Yeah, and Ohio State knew this was coming, and they are one of the most prepared, if not the most prepared, recruiting department in the nation. So I'm sure they've got presentations and all of that good stuff set up and just detailing all of the possibilities without being too, without being the middleman too much, but just letting them know like there's plenty to be had. I'm sure recruits have been asking because they want, not because they're like, hey, what can you give me? They're just like, how does this work? What exactly can I do? And I think right now it's just the feeling out process, the basic handbook of what this means for them, what this means for when they arrive, what they can expect. And, I don't know, what can a freshman expect? There's going to be, I think we talked about it a week or so ago. It'll be interesting to watch the market set itself on this and how it either rises or falls and who it rises with. And, to see a freshman come in with a whole bunch of deals and then doesn't play. And so they drop as a sophomore and drop as a junior. And then, how does that affect players? But yeah, Ohio State is definitely educating their recruits, whether they've committed or not, on this. And then they're also using it as a tool because, as we saw, as soon as this got handed down, within 5 minutes, Ohio State was tweeting out information about everything that is good about Columbus and all of the opportunities available there. So they are prepared for this. They're going to be educating recruits. And I think it's another way to build trust and just a way to get to know and build a relationship with the players is answering questions for them. Like, hey, what does this mean? And here, this is exactly what it means. And this is what it means for you. This is what it means for us. This is how we would handle this. We're going to have a department here to do this. It'll make it, it won't be overwhelming for the players. And I think that's another thing that Ohio State and other colleges have to make sure happens. This cannot be overwhelming for the players, or else it is going to be a distraction. And that's the last thing that the universities want, is for this to be a distraction in their on-field performance. So Ohio State is going to have to work really hard to make this as easy for the players as possible, to make it as seamless and to be able to fit it into their day. So you think about, like, well, I've got workouts from 6 to 7. Then I've got a study table from 7 to 8. Then, have some breakfast. Then I've got class from 9 to noon. And then I've got to go take care of this commercial. And this is all being set up by their, interdepartment scheduling people. And just to try to keep the players, they want them at the WAC as much as possible. They want their days to be as uniform as possible. This is just going to be another part of it. And they're going to have to figure out how to get it in there to make things as easy, Tom, as I said, for the players.
Right. This is not your primary job as an Ohio State football player, is to go sell cars for Reichert or whoever. Your primary job is to be a football player and a student athlete, and this is your little side hustle. So keeping all of that in perspective and keeping your priorities in line is going to be important, because if you don't handle your primary responsibilities, then all the secondary stuff that you're worried about is all going to go away, because no one cares about the third team. The kid who's a junior and still on the third team. So, last one from Bill Fleming: are the players assigned daily workouts / diets? Are there reporting requirements? How many weeks at the Woody will it take to get players into physical shape to play a real game?
Yeah, we've talked about this one a few times as well. The strength coaches are in touch with the players. They've given them as much as they can based on what the players have at their homes. They're able to send them protein shakes and things like that, and even some bands in terms of workout equipment. Reporting requirements, they're not wearing the Apple Watches, but there is communication going on, and Ryan Day has kind of been like, we're not going to monitor them like Alabama or other teams that are putting the watches on them, but they're still being monitored. There's still two-way communication going on. It's not like, surprise us when you come back, we'll see how it's going. It's not like that at all. But in terms of like how many weeks at the Woody will it take to get players into physical shape to play a real game, Ryan Day said right now it's the line right now is 6 weeks in terms of you show up to campus and in 6 weeks we will play a game. And some coaches would prefer 8. I think all coaches would prefer 8, but right now what you'd like isn't really necessarily part of the plan. It's what can we get done in this amount of time. And right now they're working on 6 weeks. Will it go to 7 or 8? Maybe, if they can. But, so 6 weeks, a couple of weeks of conditioning, and then into practice. And that's really that's the working plan right now. And as long as we continue to move through phase 1 and phase 2, practice, the federal guidelines of phase 1 and phase 2, practice can conceivably begin in phase 3, which could conceivably begin 4 weeks after phase 1 starts, provided everything continues to go well and the numbers aren't getting outrageous and things are continuing to decline. So there's still time for the season to happen in time, especially if you're talking about a 6 week ramp up period.
Yeah. And, you touched on it, but college coaches would love to have as much time as they can. If they could somehow get 10 weeks, they would love to have 10 weeks, but 8 weeks would be great. 6 weeks, it sounds like it's kind of probably the minimum. If they come in on July 1st, then yes, they would happily take their 8 weeks or whatever it would be till the start of the season. if they come in on August 15th, guess what? It's going to be 6 weeks and they're going to start the season on October 1st. But I don't see them coming in on August 10th and saying, screw it, we're going to slap it together and we're going to get the season started on time. I don't think that's going to happen because you run the risk of injuries. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be it's going to be sloppy. It's going to be, think about how gross some of the spring games in the past have looked at Ohio State and how sloppy and not ready teams look. Because, that's after 15 practices. You want to have a full fall camp. And you're still, no one is a finished product week 1 of the season, but you at least want to have a solid representative product out there on the field. And you want to make sure guys are as prepared physically as they need to be able to get out there and, not get hurt, not have guys who are, constantly pulling hamstrings because they really have not gotten back up to the work level that they need to. Because while everyone is home right now and everyone is working, people have access to different stuff. I don't think anyone is at home. The vast majority of Ohio State football players are probably not at home doing, the same squat weight that they would normally do or deadlift weight that they would normally do if they were at the WAC, practicing during, working out during the off season, just because you probably don't have access to that kind of material, that kind of equipment. So it's going to take a little while to get guys back into shape, and they're probably not going to be in peak physical condition week 1, but you want them to be in the best possible condition they can be in order to be healthy and be able to do all the things they're going to be asked to do out on the field.
Absolutely. I think that'll wrap it up for us, Tom. We still have some work to do, but we will eventually get done with these listener questions. We do appreciate you guys submitting them. It gives us something to talk about, gives us something to think about. And right now, getting our minds off of stuff isn't so bad. So thank you all for listening. Continue to check out theozone.net, read what's there. Continue to listen to us, rate and review the show. We do appreciate that. We appreciate you listening. And have a good rest of your week. Stay safe. Keep everybody calm. Keep everybody collected, and we will talk to you guys later.
We could steal a car and leave tonight. Midnight, porch light. I had to see you 'cause I know things just haven't been right. This feeling's getting stronger. I can't take it any longer. Say you will, now say you will. Oh yeah. Say you will, now say you will. If you tell me that tomorrow's alright, we can steal a car and leave tonight. If you tell me that the mornings are